Welcome to the Good Fight Podcast. I'm your host and TGF editor, Jason Langendorf. And today, again, I'm joined by our good friend, your good friend, and TGF contributor, Lucas Ketelle. It is Friday, July 17th, and boxing is going to boxing. So here's your latest 3-minute roundup. Lukey, we've got Ryan Garcia versus Conor Benn set for September 12th. That's Mexican Independence Day weekend. It's going to be at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. And I've got my own biases about this one. I'm not a big fan. Not all that interested in the fight itself, but it's a biggie. So let's get your take on it.
Well, I think it's a horrible fight. It makes no sense whatsoever. It has no consequence to the Mexican independence. Garcia is a fascinating fighter, but we're not sure where he fits at a world-class boxing level. He has one really interesting fight with Devin Haney, and then he lost pretty substantially to Gervonta Davis. And the fight with Mario Barrios, I think a lot of people, Barrios is my guy, but I think a lot of people looked at him as a vulnerable champion. So Garcia is looking the part of someone that could be interesting and play out as a world-class fighter. And Conor Benn is really unaccomplished. You know, there's not a lot that he's done. There's the best run he went on is shrouded with controversy over all the nonsense. His fight with Chris Eubank Jr., I did my best to not watch those fights. So, I mean, I don't really understand why this is a big deal. I think the point is Conor Benn got signed for a lot of money, and he's going to get beat by really famous people. And I think this is going to be the first one where there's a buildup of two characters and you're told it's a really good fight. And then Ryan Garcia probably knocks out Conor Benn and it's like, whoa, he is here. And then probably Shakur Stevenson gets a crack to beat Conor Benn and he might stop him. And then you can pick the next guy. But I say all that to say, I don't really get how this is like a big matchup to me.
Yeah, it's sort of the big matchup that nobody really wanted. And some of the nonsense you're talking about was so eloquently referenced by our Anthony Cox, British eggs versus Mexican beef. So take that for what you will. All right, next up, featherweight champ Amanda Serrano. She's going to be facing Lucretia Manzur on August 21st in Temecula, California. She's going to be going for the all-time women's knockout record, 33 KOs. The other hooks for this one, Serrano will be the first unified champion to box in a scheduled 12 2-minute rounds, and Serrano Manzur will be the first title fight streamed live on TikTok. So it's a lot to unpack. What do you got for us, Lukey?
Feels like every Amanda Serrano has some historic rounds and number significance to it, and I completely forget which one is which for this. Look, more than likely she's going to get the knockout record because if you're promoting it around the knockout record, you should pick the opponent that's going to get you the knockout record. Serrano's had a great career. It's an interesting career, as we all know. I think she was underrated for most of her career, and now she's maybe a little bit overrated towards the tail end when she got with Jake Paul. And this is a way for her to get like some legacy in the sport. More than likely, this is probably going to be her last fight, or maybe she'll take one more fight, but it's probably like a moment where this is a Hall of Fame achievement for when she goes into the Hall of Fame. They say Amanda Serrano, pioneer of women's boxing, holds the knockout record, you know, et cetera, et cetera. The TikTok thing I'm terrified of because I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch the fights because I don't have TikTok. So there's a level of
we know that you'll be able to technically. But will you be able to?
Yeah, it always sucks, right? When like, not to go on a rant, but like when like you go to Disneyland, and I haven't been because I'm scared of this, and everything's on a phone, and you're scared to use things, and it's like I like boxing, but it's like I might be getting aged out. It's always like scared when like there's these generational hurdles, and you're just like struggling to do basic things, and a 10-year-old is just doing it, and you're like, wait, am I just not supposed to do this?
We're running into old man problems as time goes on, but probably good for the sport one way or the other. And I say that before the fight, before we've seen any of the production value and know whether it actually comes off without a hitch. But it'll be interesting to see one way or the other. Um, and then just today, Vergil Ortiz Jr. and Golden Boy announced they have finally put their differences aside. They're going to play nice again, and both are focused on putting him in some big fights. What are your impressions, Lukey, of this ceasefire, and what kind of fights do you think we could maybe expect for Ortiz in the coming months?
Well, just to answer the first question, like I always feel like contract negotiations and promoter with fighter, to me as a fight guy, are the most uninteresting stories. But I feel like I have to disconnect myself because there are people that just want to click on a famous guy and see the story, even though it's kind of a non-issue. So to me, eventually this was going to have to happen because Vergil Ortiz is a big money fighter who can make money. And you don't want a guy that makes big money just sitting there not making money because then no one's making money. So eventually that gets there. But look, we want to see him in with Fendora. We want to see him in with Jaron Boots Ennis. And we'd like to see it sooner rather than later. So, hopefully we can get this Boots Ennis and worst case scenario, a Fendora or Josh Kelly. Kelly, I think, fights next week. Pretty tough fight that's kind of flying under the radar. But we want to see Vergil Ortiz in a title fight. We want to see him in a consequential fight, a fight that matters because he looks the part of a fringe pound for pound level fighter, but he's never won a world title. So something needs to change.
Yeah, and now when he's finally healthy and free of all these promotional issues, I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't have time ahead of him, but like, let's get on with it. Let's see what he's got. All right. Well, earlier this week, Lukey, you wrote a piece we titled "Will Andy Cruz be the last lightweight standing?" which can be found on the Good Fight Substack at thegoodfight12.substack.com. Everyone, if you haven't read it yet, come check it out and consider subscribing to support independent journalism, but also the best group of storytellers you're going to find in boxing. For the story, Luke, you examine not only Andy Cruz's career and his current status, but also you kind of put things in perspective around Cuban boxing and the entire lightweight division, really. What made you want to write about Cruz and where he's at in the first place?
Well, I think, and also I wanted to bring a shout out to all the writers, including yourself and the staff. I mean, let's just look at this week. We had Bill Detloff put out his story. We have Lily, obviously the 10 count with David, and then you had a fantastic article about Butch Sanchez from Ryan. I mean, just stellar. It always impresses me that I'm around such great writers. But why I wanted to do Andy Cruz, the story is well, first off, fight week, right? And he's a big fight guy, a title contender guy. So it's something that you think about, and there'd been talks. And I always feel like every Andy Cruz article is kind of the same. Really talented guy. Cuban, he can box. Good amateur. Oh man, so surprising he lost. So I was trying to unpack my own feelings around Andy Cruz and kind of some maybe stereotypes or myths around Cuban boxers and why they don't maybe get promoted as well and some of the complexity of that. And also my own inner feelings that maybe Andy Cruz won't live up to my high expectation of him when I irrationally am slightly writing him off just because he lost one fight. So that was kind of like the motivations.
Excuse me. So, in your eyes, what does he still need to prove?
He does. It's always funny when it's like a gold medal Olympian, and then here's this fat guy that looks like he's a tomato on a balcony, and I'm like, listen, Andy Cruz,
That's what
you
we
got to
do, though.
prove
That's
something.
what we do.
I know, but I always like that. I'm like, listen, bro, you got to prove this to me. But like, I think the thing is, he almost looked too good too fast. And it wasn't quite the Vasil Lomachenko thing, but it was closer than anyone else has done it, looking like a Vasil Lomachenko fighter. And then the problem with the Muratalla fight was it wasn't a skill thing. It was like a level of discomfort for me. And I got to see if like when fights get hard, is there like I guess my fear is with Cuban fighters, sometimes there's a reliance on skill. And there's a belief that skill beats like will, toughness, maybe good conditioning. And I saw some of those red flags in that fight, to be honest. I'm like, oh man, is he one of these really talented guys that just assumes his skill is going to win a fight? And then when you go into those deep waters, he's like, wait, this isn't the way it's supposed to go. This isn't fun. Let me figure out a way to kind of like move around and win this. And Muratalla never gave him time to breathe. So I do have concerns because I think it's more for me not a talent thing, it's a temperament thing. Does he have the temperament to handle the physical and tough and mentally strong fighters at the top of any division?
Yeah, and I kind of put it in perspective. I mean, you bring up Lomachenko. What Cruz is attempting to do hasn't even been attempted all that often in modern boxing. That was his seventh fight. He's putting himself out there against some pretty darn good fighters and fighting 10 rounders. And yes, gold medal Olympian. Yes, 30 years old. You know, he ought to be further ahead than many of his career. Um, Sorry, we're getting a little bit of janky audio here. So you asked the question, and without giving away the whole piece, do you have an answer to the story title? Is can Cruz still rule the lightweight division? Do we see that in his future?
Well, I love that now there's a rumor that he's 130 pound. He's going to move down to 130, which is like, oh yeah, just stick it to my article, right? It's like fight week, maybe. But like, I think that he really is right up there with the Keyshawn Davises. Like to me, if you were to pick 10 fighters from that Olympic class that should be good pros, he should be one of them. I think the paradox to me is, without saying too much of the article, is Cuban fighters don't get the luxury of being like really good pros. They have to be excellent, and to be a superstar, you have to be exceptional and like generational. There's no like buffer like other, and it's just read the article to kind of go through some of those thoughts. And I think the problem is Cruz looked so special. He looked like a guy that could redefine. Who he reminded me of, but different in a different way, was Yuriorkis Gamboa. Gamboa came out and he was so different, and you're like, whoa, is this gold medal explosive, like a little Mike Tyson? And Cruz wasn't quite that, but he felt different. And then the fact that he lost this fight, it seems goofy, but it takes away some of that mystique of this fast-tracked rising pro with this mythical amateur career. Now you start to go, is he really that good, or did they just move him quick because he needs to make money?
Yeah, I hear that. So go check out Lukey's story. Go ahead and take a look at everything we got going on at the Good Fight. We've got the Substack, we've got the YouTube page, and do be sure to go check that out. It's at the Good Fight 12 on YouTube. Subscribe. That helps us quite a bit. That's going to keep us going. If the more of you who like what you see there, there's a lot of free content. The more of you who subscribe, that's gonna help float this whole thing. So you can go there and check out what we added this week. Diego and Fed Pacheco visiting with local Los Angeles fans ahead of their fights, both on the same card tomorrow night, Saturday at the War Grounds in Carson, California. And be sure to join us on our live stream on the TGF post-fight show tomorrow night, just after that DAZN broadcast. Or you can catch the recording later on YouTube. But if you want to come out, and I see we've got a few people joining us right here on the live stream who are already kind of good friends of the show. Hopefully you'll make it back out tomorrow, and we'll be joined by a bunch of others. In the meantime, hit up our TGF Substack for all of the brilliant writing, reporting, analysis, and opinion that we give you. And that includes Eric Raskin's column from this week, Moses, Lead Us to the Promised Land, which kind of wonders aloud whether Moses Atama has to go full prime Mike Tyson just to hold down the heavyweight division in the near future. And then, Lukey, you mentioned Ryan Sangalia's really cool feature, building a boxing culture from scratch, which details one club's efforts to bring the fight game to the Faroe Islands. You should go check that out. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Lukey. I know we we say this all the time. I think it might come off as a little bit of a love fest, but I am always heartened by going to my inbox, going to my Google Drive every day, and seeing what the next thing is that I get to work through and post, because my job right now is to read all this really cool stuff, and try to get out of the way and just let it shine. So that'll do it today for us at the Good Fight Podcast yet again. Thanks for joining us. And again, come out tomorrow night. We're going to have the live stream on after the Diego Pacheco DAZN broadcast. See you at the fights.